welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am so excited to dive back into my Project Life album and work on 4 layouts with you. If you are new to my channel or new to the concept of Project Life, simply Project Life is an album that I am creating a layout for every week of the year that documents the stories, big and small, of our family's lives. I am doing so in a 9x12 sized album, working inside of pocket pages and bringing in products from a wide range of manufacturers, but primarily Ali Edwards, as you will see today. Now today I am going to be working on 4 different layouts, 2 that will finish up my March pages and 2 that are going to be the beginning or the first half of April. My hope and my plan currently is to post one of these videos each month that takes you through a handful of layouts all at once. If you would like to see my earlier layouts, I do have all of them available to watch here on YouTube, but they are in my live videos. So you can go into my live video archive and see all of my 2022 Project Life layouts up to, I believe, week 11. So today we're going to be working on 12 through 15. I'm going to be using the March and the April Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards for 2 of the layouts. I am going to be using an older digital version of a Stories by the Month kit from March of, I believe, 2019. And then I'm also pulling out a stash kit to use up the rest of the pieces from a collection that was designed by In a Creative Bubble, produced by Pinkfresh Studio, and called Too Cool. So really excited to use up the rest of those supplies and get that out of my stash and into a book. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and flip over to my desk and get started working on these Project Life layouts. All right, friends, we're going to get started here by working on week number 12. This would have been the week leading up to spring break at Isabella's school, which is actually, interestingly enough, our very first spring break with the kids ever, which will be the next layout that we work on. But this is the lead up. I chose to work with the Ali Edwards March Stories by the Month kit because this was still the month of March, and I typically try to use up as much of those kits as possible. In my stash, I also had this really awesome wood veneer piece from Colorcast Designs. It's just MAR, so an abbreviated title for March. And I want to layer that on top of the elongated yellow label. Those labels are super old. They are from Ali Edwards, but they were from the One Little Word kit back in 2019 or 2020. They're super, super old. But I love them. I love especially this longer one, and I love the color yellow, so it works out really nicely. So I stamped out the 2 days, so Monday through Sunday. That is typically how I start out my title cards, is just adding the dates on there. And then I stuck the March wood veneer right on top of that, creating this little layered sentiment there in the middle. And then I will eventually pull out some puffy heart stickers. Actually, right here, I'm going to do it right now. And I'll stick that in between the dates as a date separator. So that's going to be my title card. I super loved the rainbow of colors on that one and the way it's just kind of watercolored. And I wouldn't normally use that as a journaling card because it's too busy. I could have added a photo to it, which is something I'll do a little bit later with another super busy card, but I just wanted to, I didn't want to cover it up, so therefore it became my title card for the entire week. Now, one of the things I used to do years ago that I have really gotten away from is stamping directly on top of my photos. This month, the Stories by the Month kit has this 3x4 stamp set, and it had a lot of sentiments that worked out pretty nicely with the photos that I have this time. So I decided to go back to some of my older roots there and use the stamp on my photo. I print my photos here at home on Canon glossy photo paper, which absorbs ink really nicely for the most part. Every once in a while it doesn't do what I want it to do, but for the most part it does stamp quite nicely on the paper. If you are getting yours printed at like a big box place, the photo paper might not take to ink as well. So I would suggest testing it out first before trying it on the photo you actually want to include. But for me, I love stamping on this particular photo paper, and I think that it was a really just a good deviation for embellishing on my photos, something a little bit different than I've done in my recent layouts. So I've added a stamp to the photo of Jonah and our cat Dibs. I also added a stamp to the photo of Aaron with the kids at the water park. That was the first day of spring break. We went to the water park with my family. And then I think that might have been, and then I added one more in the middle of that watercolor heart because I wasn't sure what else to do there. So I just made that one into a decorated card. I finished up that layout with adding more of those puffy heart stickers and adding some tiny phrase stickers on top of that, and then called that layout done. Oftentimes, when I am working inside of Project Life and adding a lot of words or a lot of busy photos onto a layout, I tend to keep my embellishing really light just because I don't want to clutter up the space and make it too hard for my eyes to look at. So for the most part, my embellishing stays pretty light on my Project Life layouts. For this next one, I went back in time and pulled out a digital March Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards. This one, I believe, was from 2019. It might have even been 2018, but I'm pretty sure it's 2019. And printed off a lot of those digital cards. I super love the card that I'm going to turn into my title card. It's the one in the upper left-hand corner that's got those wonky sort of stripes across it. As I was looking through my embellishments, since this is a digital kit, so I don't have any physical embellishments that necessarily, quote unquote, came with the kit. So I'm going into my stash and pulling out pieces from other kits, from other products that I have ordered or received, and I'm using those on my layout instead. Primarily, I'm using the stars. They are a felt star from the Star Quarterly Scrapbooking Kit from Ali Edwards. The fabric phrases are also from an Ali Edwards Quarterly Scrapbooking Kit, but that one's from the rainbow one. And then because I had the felt stars on there, but I actually wanted more stars on this page, I went into my wood veneer stash and pulled these ones out, which are from Colorcast Design. They were maybe a couple months ago is when Jessica put those out. You will see that I'll add a star and a phrase to almost every photo on this layout. It doesn't end up being every single one, I don't think. Let me look around the page. Maybe it does. Maybe I do end up adding something to every photo. And I will just kind of layer the phrase on top of the star to create a embellishment cluster for each of those photos. Now, I had this idea for my title card to actually hand write in the dates, so to spell out the month and then write in the day, and have the tiny little wonky stripe in between to put a tiny star there as a date separator, but I didn't want to I wanted to test it out and make sure that I liked it first. So what I did is I grabbed a piece of vellum, stuck the vellum on top of the card so I could practice what I was going to write. And then I decided that, yeah, I totally loved it. So I took the vellum away and then wrote it for real on the card. I really, really love how this one turns out, and it makes me, I don't know, it makes me think about handwriting some journaling pretty soon, just because I do like to have handwriting on my layouts. It's just, I have a lot to say in a lot of these weeks of Project Life, so I can fit more with typing, which is a lot of times why I choose to go with typing instead of handwriting. So all that's left to do for this one is to stick down all of those stars. For the wood veneer ones, I'm adding a little bit of roller adhesive to the back of them. And same with the fabric phrases. I'm just adding roller adhesive to the back and then sticking those down. For the felt hearts, I'm going to use my tiny attacher to stick them down with a little itty bitty staple. That way we get there's still some dimension there, right? So that it's not totally stuck down, but because I'm layering the phrase on top of it, it's gonna help hold down more of the star than just the little staple would. One of the things I particularly like about this layout is that even though all of the cards and the photos were things that I had digitally and I printed off here at home, adding in the wood veneer and the felt and the fabric phrases just brought in this awesome piece of texture to this layout, which takes it from a one-dimensional piece to something that's a little bit more 3D, a little bit more dimensional. And the texture just adds an element of interest to my layout. So definitely something I recommend if you're using digital pieces to create your layouts. Another thing that I will recommend for anyone who's curious and thinking about doing digital journaling cards at home, printing them at home, the paper that I use to print off all of my digital cards is matte white photo paper, which I always recommend for these digital pieces because the colors that are going to print out onto this paper are going to more closely resemble the actual colors that would have been in the kits themselves. When I use regular cardstock, the colors tend to be a bit more dull than they would be in the physical product, if that makes sense. So just in case you're wondering, matte white photo paper is my go-to for printing off digital cards. All right, so let's move on to week number 14. I should say that week number 13 that I just finished up was the week of spring break. And to be honest, I ended up getting sick at the beginning of it. So all of our plans went awry as a cold rippled through our house and we all just spent the week recovering. So then this next week is one that I'm using a traditional scrapbooking collection to create my Project Life layout. I actually created a very similar looking layout for a blog post for scrapbooking and cards today. It's on their blog and it was for a spread for my 2021 album. When I put that layout together, I actually had a bunch of these little Polaroid pieces left over, and I decided that I wanted to use those for a different week of Project Life and use them all on the layout. So that was my inspiration behind this layout altogether. Plus, this was a week when we had a lot going on, and I took a lot more pictures than in the previous weeks. So it made a lot of sense to use the Polaroids where I could add a ton of photos to this layout and include the journaling for those different pieces of the story as well. So for this one, the product that I'm using is from a collection designed by In a Creative Bubble called Super Cool, and it is from Pinkfresh Studio, although it's super old, so I think there's like a paper that you can get on scrapbook.com, and that might be it. So most of this is no longer available. I do, however, think that it is the Polaroid paper that is available. So if you like the idea of using the Polaroids on a layout like this, I'm pretty sure you can still get your hands on that particular pattern paper. So for the title card there, I'm using a stripe piece of paper. So it was a gray and white stripe from the same collection. And then I added one of these circle labels from Allie Edwards. That was from the Scrapbooking Basics collection. And that's just in the middle there for me to add my 2 dates in. A little bit later, I'll put some additional embellishments there because for me, it was just feeling really, I don't know, like out of scale, I suppose. Like that little circle was just too small for how big the card is. When I add the embellishments to it later, it does help fill in the space and it feels a lot more balanced for my title piece in general. Now, in the paper collection, there were also these I'm calling them bulletins. It's kind of like it's almost like a sticky note or a piece of paper that's tacked up with washi is what it looks like to me. Maybe something on a clipboard. I don't know. It just has that kind of appeal, that kind of look. These were also from a piece of pattern paper where I cut all of the bulletins, as I'm calling them, out. And then I thought that the square section with a little bit of color was a perfect place to add a photo. And then there's a spot at the bottom where I could add in some extra journaling if I wanted to, but I end up actually sticking that on top of a 6x4 piece of pattern paper and then putting a bunch of journaling on vellum and then stapling the vellum on top of the pattern paper. That is definitely one of my favorite ways to use pattern paper as journaling cards in my layouts, is to take the patterns that are a little bit more subtle, ones that maybe have more muted colors or ones that are not super duper busy, and then I can print my journaling directly onto vellum, cut it out, and adhere it with staples on top of the pattern paper. So what that does is it further mutes down the colors in the pattern. It allows you to see the journaling on top, but it also makes it so that the pattern in the card itself is not totally hidden. You're not covering the whole thing up. So this is in general how this is going to end up going. So you can see I have the 3 6x4 cards where I've got the quote unquote bulletin with pictures on it. I have 2 3x4 photos that are just plain old photos. And then I have 9 3x4 pockets where I have the Polaroid, which is on top of vellum, a full 3x4 piece of vellum that has journaling underneath it. And then I have stapled or stuck down the vellum onto additional pattern paper. So it helps to tie everything in because it's all got the 2 patterns, either a light pink polka dot or the gray and white stripe. And then having the journaling on the vellum just really keeps things super cohesive. So that is the main design decision I made here. And then once I had all of that into place, I pulled out the rest of the ephemera pieces or the cardstock stickers that I had remaining from this collection and tried to use all of them up. I think I ended up with 3 that I won't use, and those will just go into a destash pile and I will give them away. You can also see how I've used some of those embellishments on the title card to help fill in a lot of the blank space. So when it was only the label, it just felt really out of scale, and adding in the 2 pieces, the one at the top and the one at the bottom of that label, helped to fill it in and make it feel a little bit more substantial in the middle, but also more pleasing to the eye, in my opinion. I also took some of those pieces and added them underneath the photos on top of the Polaroids or on top of the bulletins just to help fill in some of the space or change the sentiments that didn't really make sense that were maybe on the Polaroids themselves. For this week, the stories I am telling are of Jonah starting preschool for the first time. I did a couple of shopping trips, and then our family also went to the zoo with my in-laws. So I have a bunch of pictures from the zoo, and then I just told little bits and pieces of the stories on each of those 3x4 Polaroid cards. The bigger ones, so the one of Jonah going to school, there's one of he and I going to the movies. And then there's one of my studio, which I was working on getting kind of made over and hanging things up and reorganizing. Those were my bigger stories of the week. So I wanted to make sure that the journaling had a larger space for me to add my words to. Now we're going to move on to the last of my Project Life layouts. This one is going to be super quick and easy because I'm using the May Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards. Is it May? No, it's April. Sorry, the April Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards. A lot of times when I'm using a Stories by the Month kit, I will force myself, quote unquote, to use only that kit on the layout. That helps me to not have decision fatigue. It helps me to make my decisions actually much quicker that way. And it allows me to use up my product. So that's where we're going with this one. So I'm starting on the left-hand side there with adding the label sticker into the middle of the patterned card there. I have 2 of those really patterned cards in this one. One is the title card, and one's actually going to serve as a mat around the photo of my husband standing in front of the food truck. I like to do that when I have cards that are super patterned that I just don't see myself using as the full card itself. So instead of printing my photo at a 6x4 inch scale, I instead print it at 5.75 by 3.75. So it gives me a 1/4 of an inch around the entire photo, and that is filled in with the color. And it also helps tie in a lot of that super patterned color as well. I also stuck down a couple of the 2-inch chipboard sentiments. So I have the Easter, what does it say? Easter, Happy Easter? Yes. And then there's Spring Loves. And then there's also another one with that really, really bright, busy pattern. The patterned one I'm going to use here in a little bit as a home for some more text through using the tiny phrase stickers, which is also one of the things I love to do with those really patterned pieces in the chipboard sets, is to then layer on a bunch of those tiny phrase stickers and make it have a little bit more purpose on my spread than just being something decorative. I'm also pulling some really old puffy heart stickers. These are from Future Craft, which you can't get these anymore, but I'm pulling them out because I have a bunch of them and the colors went really well. Plus, I always love having the opportunity to add just a little bit of something onto my photos to give them some dimension and make it not so flat. So I have added a puffy heart sticker to, I believe, almost all of the photos. And then I'm going to take the tiny phrase sticker sheet here, pick a bunch of these phrases that work kind of sort of with the photos that I've got. And I'm going to layer that on top of the puffy heart sticker. And then I'll also add a bunch into the chipboard circle or half circle, since I cut half of it off. That's on the picture of Erin making deviled eggs. This week was the week of Easter. So most of the photos I have here are actually from our Easter celebration. We went over to my parents and my mom got the kids these giant stuffed animals. Izzy was obsessed with her bunny and playing cards with it, which seriously, some of my favorite pictures I have of her this year for sure. I love them. Love, love, love them. Erin made deviled eggs. And then I've also got just some random pictures from the week. One of me in a new outfit, one of the kids playing in the park down the street, and then one of our cat who was napping inside of a sink, and it just totally made me laugh when I walked into the bathroom and saw him stick his head out of the sink. So that is going to finish up this these 4 layouts. And then at the end of this video, you're going to see some still shots of the full layouts. If you want to see more details with each of these layouts, I do have blog posts that are going to be available on my website where you can see closer up images, or they will eventually all be shared over on my Instagram as well. All right, friends, that's going to be it for today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you back here next week for another video, or next month for another roundup of a bunch of Project Life layouts. Until then, enjoy your month of May, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye, friends.